In the 1800s, American painters began creating landscapes so vast that humans stopped feeling important inside them. Not through violence, not through tragedy, through mountains, through silence, through light. The Hudson River School was supposed to celebrate the American wilderness. Instead, it quietly revealed something civilization was not prepared to confront. What happens when nature no longer feels built for us at all? There is something unsettling hidden inside the paintings of the Hudson River School. At first, they appear comforting. Beautiful rivers, golden light, immense forests, mountains untouched by industry. The paintings seem to celebrate America itself. But the longer you look, the stranger they become. Because the wilderness inside these images does not behave like traditional landscape painting. It does not frame humanity. It overwhelms it. Tiny figures disappear beside cliffs. Villages dissolve beneath storms. Human presence feels temporary, almost accidental. And slowly, an uncomfortable realization begins to emerge. The land does not appear to care that people are inside it at all. The rivers continue without witnesses. The forests extend beyond comprehension. The mountains rise with complete indifference to human scale. And beneath all the beauty, the Hudson River School begins revealing something far more destabilizing than nationalism or scenery. A world that no longer appears organized around humanity. At the beginning of the movement, Thomas Cole still tries to preserve order. His paintings do not simply depict wilderness. They interpret it. Storms become warnings. Ruins become memory. Light becomes moral direction. Nature still appears connected to human meaning. And this matters. Because for centuries, Western art assumed that landscapes reflected humanity back to itself. The world existed as stage, mirror, or symbol. Cole still believes this. But the American wilderness creates a problem he cannot fully solve. It is too large. The forests continue beyond the frame. The mountains feel older than civilization itself. The rivers move without visible destination. And gradually, the symbolic structure begins to weaken. The wilderness no longer feels like something designed to carry human meaning. It feels independent from it. This is the first fracture, not the loss of beauty, the loss of reciprocity. Cole could paint meaning into the wilderness because he could still contain it. But what happens when the wilderness refuses to fit inside the frame? Frederic Edwin Church answers that question. His landscapes no longer invite contemplation from a safe distance. They engulf the viewer entirely. In Niagara, there is almost nowhere stable to stand psychologically. Water dominates perception. Mist erases orientation. Scale overwhelms emotional processing itself. And here, something important collapses. Human beings understand the world through proportion. We need distance in order to interpret. But Church removes that distance. The viewer is no longer outside the landscape. They are emphasis trapped inside its magnitude. And once immersion replaces observation, nature stops feeling symbolic. Viewers felt this physically. When Church exhibited Niagara in New York, people reportedly stood before the painting in near silence. Some approached the canvas slowly, as if distance itself had become unstable. Others described the strange sensation that the waterfall continued beyond the frame, as though the room itself had briefly opened. The painting was no longer behaving like an image. It behaved like emphasis exposure. And here is what that means. If you cannot stand outside a thing, you cannot interpret it. You can only experience it. Church had accidentally dismantled the very act of observation. The next painter would take the opposite approach and reach the same terrifying conclusion. Asher B. Durand does not overwhelm. He whispers. His forests are quieter, slower, almost weightless. At first they feel peaceful, but the silence gradually becomes something else. Nothing inside these landscapes asks to be interpreted. The trees do not symbolize wisdom. The light does not announce revelation. The wilderness does not perform emotion for the viewer. It simply exists. And this is where the real crisis begins. A viewer standing before Durand's paintings begins to notice something the mind resists accepting. The trees would remain complete, even if no person ever walked beneath them. The light would still cross the leaves. The wind would still move through branches. Morning would still arrive. The wilderness does not need a witness. And that realization, quiet, undramatic, unavoidable, is more destabilizing than anything Church achieved through spectacle. Because Church's scale could still feel like a message. Durand's silence feels like its absence. Albert Bierstadt expands the wilderness beyond emotional containment. Everything becomes enormous. Mountains dominate entire horizons. Clouds resemble architecture. Light turns theatrical, almost supernatural. But the deeper effect is psychological. Human beings' emphasis shrink into fragments. Tiny riders crossing impossible valleys. Small camps nearly erased by atmosphere. Minute silhouettes overwhelmed by geological scale. The figures are still present, but no longer central. And this changes the emotional structure of the landscape entirely. Nature no longer feels inhabited by humanity. Humanity feels briefly tolerated by nature. Bierstadt's paintings create a new sensation. The viewer stops trying to emotionally possess the wilderness. And once that shift occurs, the idea of human importance becomes increasingly difficult to recover. Cole lost reciprocity. Church lost distance. Durand lost response. Bierstadt lost proportion. There was one comfort left. The belief that even if nature did not need us, it was at least trying to speak to us. By the late 19th century, something fundamental has changed. The wilderness no longer appears symbolic at all. It appears self-contained. This transformation reaches its emotional conclusion through artists like Winslow Homer. His oceans do not carry moral lessons. Storms no longer symbolize judgment. Nature no longer behaves like metaphor. Waves move because waves move. The sea destroys without explanation. Light appears and disappears without meaning. And here, the final illusion collapses. That nature was ever communicating with humanity in the first place. Not through storms. Not through mountains. Not through silence. The wilderness was never speaking to us. We were simply projecting ourselves into it. And once that realization appears, the entire Hudson River School reorganizes itself retroactively. Not as celebration, as decentering. Seen separately, the paintings feel different. A moral storm over a valley. A waterfall that erases the room. A forest that continues without you. A mountain range that makes you small. An ocean that owes you nothing. 5 painters. 5 landscapes. 5 separate careers. But viewed together over time, a pattern begins to emerge, almost against the intentions of the painters themselves. Not progress, erosion. Each movement in this sequence removes something the previous one still had. Coal had meaning but lost reciprocity. Church had scale but lost distance. Durand had beauty but lost response. Bierstadt had presence but lost proportion. Homer had proportion but lost the final illusion. That the wilderness was ever organized around human consciousness at all. Different styles, different decades, different landscapes, one direction. And the paintings stop feeling like separate works. They start feeling like a single, slow confession. Every civilization quietly assumes something about itself. That human beings occupy a meaningful position inside existence. That the world responds to us, reflects us, contains us. The Hudson River School slowly dismantled this belief. Not through philosophy, through perception itself. First through beauty, which still felt inviting. Then through scale, which destabilized interpretation. Then through silence, which revealed the absence of response. Then through magnitude, which reduced humanity to proportion. And finally, through autonomy, which exposed nature as something entirely independent from human consciousness. This was the deeper revelation hidden inside 19th-century American landscape painting. The wilderness did not need humanity in order to exist beautifully. And once that realization entered visual culture, modern consciousness quietly changed with it. The center was not lost. It had never existed at all. A river moving through morning fog. Light crossing mountains older than memory. Forests shifting slowly beneath wind no one controls. And somewhere inside the landscape, tiny human figures passing briefly through it, believing for only a moment that the wilderness was made for them. The painters are gone now. The viewers who first stood before these canvases are gone too. Entire generations disappeared beneath the same mountains they once believed they were discovering. But the rivers remain. The mountains remain. The forests survive every generation that attempts to name them. And perhaps this is why the Hudson River School still feels strangely modern now. Not because it celebrated America, because beneath all its beauty, it captured something we have spent 2 centuries trying not to see. The world was never built around us. It was only passing through us. the same way light passes through a forest at dawn, when no one is watching.